Hey, Paul Mauro here. Welcome back to another edition of Smart Financial Life, stories from a real life. And I have a great guest today, Bob McCarthy. Hey, Bob.
How you doing? Good.
Welcome to the podcast. We call this Nothing Good. Nothing good happens last minute. This guy's a perfect example of that. We're going to talk about life and times of Bob McCarthy and Susan. Susan's not with us, but I'm going to give her a shout out because Susan is the great organizer of the family. If we didn't have Susan, like I didn't have Linda, we wouldn't even be here, right?
That is true.
But we're going to talk a little bit about Bob's past life, his current situation, and how we all got here. Hopefully it'll be some great lessons for everybody. Of course, as a reminder, subscribe to the channel, hit the little button below. You have comments and questions, shoot them out to us. We're happy to answer them. Don't ask Bob anything too personal, but he might answer it. So Bob, tell us about, before we go into all the other stuff, tell me about your family life and where you grew up and all that.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, not by the Harvard side, down in East Cambridge, by the railroad track side. And so I'm one of four, and my dad lived in the same house way back at that point in time. And my wife grew up in Columbia Point Housing Project, and she moved over to Old Colony Housing Project. So she's a Salty girl, and we met, and we've been together now 47 years.
Wow. Now, okay, so that's a success. All right, we'll check one off for that. And Susan is an educator, right?
She is. So she worked in the media center, and then she ran administration for a middle school. So she wasn't a teacher per se, but she's been in the school system for many years before she retired.
Yeah, one of the stories about Bob, and one of the reasons that we're here, when you look at him today, and we're recording this in September of 2025, I can tell you, because I was there, that Bob looks 20 years younger than the day he got off the airplane from Asia for the last time. And I'm going to let him tell you the story about what his work life was like when we met 21 years ago and started talking about money. Bob, tell everybody what you did for a living.
Yeah, so virtually my entire career, I worked in the electronics marketplace, a specific segment called Electronic Manufacturing Services. So we manufactured circuit boards, subsystems, and finished goods systems. And over a 35, 40-year career, it evolved. So it started with having local customers in the New England area, and then in the outsourcing, and our building product was in Massachusetts. But as the market changed, outsourcing then went over to Asia. So my last 16 years, I worked for a company based in Singapore. We manufactured in the U.S., Singapore, Malaysia, and China. And China was certainly the hotbed of where people wanted to go. And the customer base also expanded, where there was so much merger and acquisitions that continue to happen to this day, where maybe a New England or Massachusetts company buys companies in Texas or Sweden, and my role as business development was to pursue those opportunities wherever the corporate parent company told me the opportunities were. So I had situations where I had customers in Sweden. The design came out of Norway. The manufacturing is in Malaysia, and I'm based in Massachusetts. So the world's a 24-hour place, and you have to adapt and work to that.
I remember when we met and just having you describe your work life. Now, for a lot of people, they think their work life is 9 to 5. You get up, you jump in a car, you commute to your job, you're in the building, you plug in your computer, you do your thing, 4:59, you pack up, you drive home, you spend time with your family. Bob's life was not like that. And in fact, I have to tell you, the first couple of times we met, and Bob would describe how many miles that he had flown since the last time we met. Give us sort of an idea, at the heyday, how much were you home?
Yeah, I was probably home close to like a 40-60 type of split.
Yeah.
Home 40%, on the road. On the road is not always in an airplane because I covered the New England base, the East Coast base, and then wherever that took me. So some of it was local, and some of it was, again, international type of thing. But there is certainly one of those things where you arrive home on a flight from Logan, and you need to use your clicker to like find where your car was type of thing. Or I remember specifically a snowy night in Chicago where, I step out of the hotel and it's like, I can't remember what rental car. Was it white? Was it gray? I don't know. And it's covered, they're all covered with snow. And so there does reach a point where you need to get out of it too.
Yeah, and that's when we met. And
Yes.
That's a perfect segue into your decision process. We do a lot of talk about retiring, especially retiring early and retiring often and trying a second career. And we have a course coming out actually in January. We call it REO, R-E-O, Retire Early and Often, for people who get into a career, get vested, they leave, they do something else for fun or entertainment. Tell me what actually drove the decision for you. And I remember you had decided you were done, right? And what was it all about? Was it your health? Was it the not knowing where your rental car was, or what?
Yeah, I'm probably in a family of long-term planners, and so I thought long and hard about to answer this one. I got into the black, if you will, at 38 years old, and I was always savings. And when I was 40, I visited visited Vero Beach, Florida, and I fell in love with that area like literally in a day or two. And I knew that's where I wanted to go for part of my retirement. So I had been planning, in fact, when I met with you, I had given you my 10-year growth and loss plan, if you recall. Yeah. I work and think in Excel. And you had seen all my big ups and my big ups and downs, and so
it was like dueling spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I have to say, Bob was very good, and a lot of people can't work with financial advisors because they just, first of all, they don't like criticism, or they don't like second opinions, or whatever. But this was the opposite. This was like what we call in Asia open kimono. I mean, Bob was like, yeah. Here's what it is. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Can I get to my goal? So go ahead from there.
Yeah. So part of it is, so I've always been tracking that growth. And I always considered, while I worked for a company, at the end of the day, it was Bob and Susan Inc.
Yeah.
And so we were our own business, and we wanted to retire at 62. That was always the plan. That was always the goal. I didn't know how I was going to make it because we had 4 big hurdles. One was housing. The other was college, and we did pay for our children's college. My youngest went to community college, so that was met her education needs, but it wasn't as heavy as the first 2 kids. 2 daughters, the cost of weddings. And then at the end of that, I wasn't going to be broke. I was going to have money to retire. So those were our 4 challenges, and we're modest middle income people. So if you don't plan, you're kind of toast.
Yeah, I think that anyone who is interested in that process, I mean, my books are actually written for basic, hardworking, middle income Americans. I mean, people who make $100 million don't need to read my books. I will just tell you, they can all have a day off.
Right.
But in Superstar Grandparenting, I write about this whole topic. I mean, one of the greatest gifts you can give your kids is education. You guys pull it off. I mean, that's got to be a great feeling of accomplishment, number one, right? And so 4 kids, okay? Couple of marriages.
I have three children.
3 children, yeah. 3 children, right?
Yeah.
Couple of marriages. Right, so you wrote a lot of checks.
I did, yeah, even for the 3rd one a little bit. So,
all right. So let's just talk about. Do you have any grandkids?
I do. I have 4.
Oh my God. Okay, so you've gone from being a superstar parent to a superstar grandparent. And where are they located? Where are the kids?
They're all in Mass, which is great. So Attleboro, Braintree, and Stoneham, and so 16, 14, 9, and 7. The 9 and 7 are 2 boys in Stoneham, so we just saw them Saturday, and they're a lot of fun.
So tell me what your life pattern's like now. Are you you're a classic? Are you a snowbird? I mean, you stay here when the chill comes out, because I think this is the first time, folks, I've ever seen him not in shorts. So when the snowflakes come, you go to Vero Beach?
Yeah, we've been living 6 and 6 now, 6 months there and 6 months here for 9 years, because I retired at 62 and I'm 71 now. And so when we come home, it really is to be with the family and be with the grandkids. But even before that, and I have to again give Susan the credit for this, it's not just babysitting, it's making memories. And so whether it's Susan's cooking or baking or arts and craft, painting pumpkins and getting all the paint all over you, or going into downtown Boston with the kids, a lot of fun, beach days. It's she's always coming up with creative ideas that the kids like and enjoy, and that's what we do. We try to create memories.
I was going to ask you about that. So there's a lot of issues that come up for our grandparents, right? And it's helping with, babysitting, housing, education of grandchildren. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the pressures on young families today are just enormous, right? And some of the checks they're going to write for those 7-year-olds to go to college would just give you a nosebleed, right? And so you guys pitched in by doing some childcare, babysitting, or whatever you want to call it. Give the parents a night out, have a date, right?
We always try to do that when we're here.
Yeah.
And when we're not, then it's FaceTime. The worm's starting to turn now because the older kids can fly without a parent. So
Florida.
So we may see them in Florida. So
that's cool.
So
tell me, you're a long-term planner. Did you inherit that from your folks? And one of my questions is, do you feel like now your kids are married and their kids, did they inherit that gene from you? Was the long-term planning, like financial strategy, legal work, all the stuff that we did? By the way, folks, planning is not a one-meeting thing. I mean, I think if we went back 21 years, and Bob works with one of our great financial advisors at the Legacy Company, I think there's probably 30 meetings in the books, if there's one, right? Involving, investments and insurance and lifetime income and this, legal stuff. So it does take a commitment. It's a commitment of time and money. So did you get that from your family? My dad worked in a factory. He manufactured books. He was in the bookbinding business down on A Street in South Boston, which is now the Seaport. We live paycheck to paycheck, so I'm not quite sure where I picked that up. Okay.
But I just, but all of my siblings have that metric, and I would tell you that my children have, in various degrees. My middle daughter, Caitlin, is an Excel person, and I can't. I make fun of Excel, but
hey,
I manage through Excel.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That's a great inheritance. Actually, passing down the planning gene, probably one of the best things that you can do. So, of the stressful things, have you helped them all get their home? Are they all homeowners? I mean, it's really tough to become a homeowner in this era, right?
So, my son, the oldest, is a homeowner in Braintree. My daughter, and he's married. My daughter, Caitlin, married, homeowner in Stoneham. My youngest is not, and she works as a dental assistant at the VA over in Jamaica Plain.
Okay.
And she got married just 8 months ago, and her husband's unfortunately terminally ill. They're just not in a situation where they're living with his parents right now. So we're definitely need to make some plans, long-term plans, so that she's not going to be the one left out, because a single person, and particularly a single woman, middle road income, you're not going to survive anywhere for that. But we'll
talk more about her situation. You have a great incredible story, and I want everybody to hear about it, and we'll talk about Ashlyn's story when you're ready to kind of like give
Sure.
everybody an education on that. But let me just kind of like run through a couple things about you first, because I've been observing. You know, most of you that are watching this know that I ran a financial practice for 50 years. 50 is a big number. We had a great 50th retirement party, and now I'm on my third act here of doing financial education, driven by my son, by the way. I will tell you, this was all Nick's idea right after the 50th anniversary. He said, why waste off 50 years of like accumulated knowledge? And so there's a couple of books and podcasts and videos and all that stuff. But what would you have done different? Looking back now, okay, you're 71 years old. I've seen, you know, some of what's developed for you. I can only say that from our perspective, things have been like AAA. You got what you wanted, lifestyle, etc. But would you have worked longer? Would you have retired earlier? Would you have maybe not made your vacation home 2,000 miles away? Is there anything you would have done differently looking back?
Because there's limits in the sense that for a long time I was a single earner for the family.
Okay.
And nowadays people can't do that. You have to be dual income. So the ability to take a risk is a little bit limited, but I wish I could have taken more risk in my business life, and maybe got more rewards. However, the flip side to that is, if it doesn't pan out, you know, you jeopardize what your plan was. So, but I would have liked to. I mean, I saw some people went into startup companies, did extremely well, or moved around in jobs rather quickly and did the salary bump ups. But as far as, I think I'm a little bit blessed that the idea that at age 50, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what the goals were. And again, my wife and I routinely discussed housing, education, the weddings, and at the end, I am going to retire. I'm not going to be one of those people that, you know, need to work to 70 plus because they can't afford to do it. So I kind of was locked in early. I'm not sure if I would have changed anything, but if I could have done a little more risk taking.
Okay. That's legit. I think is a very interesting book by this guy, Dr. Wiseman, called Luck, L-U-C-K. It's a great read. I love to give plugs. Now that I've written a couple of books, I will tell you what, it's not easy. And this guy, Dr. Wiseman at Princeton, he wrote a book on the luck factor. And so much of life has to do with where you're born, what country, anybody, he says, who's successful, who doesn't admit that there was a luck factor in their lives is just completely out of it.
That's true.
Lucky for us, I went to Northeastern University in Boston when it was a blue collar working guy school, and I could work co-op and pay my way through. Those days are over, but I wasn't born in Angola. I wasn't born in Eastern Europe. I mean, you and I actually were very fortunate, right?
Absolutely.
Born in New England, live in New England, that was like a big plus, right?
Right.
Also, you have to work with the cards that you're kind of dealt. My dad was an immigrant, Sicilian guy, came here with nothing, worked as a hood milkman after World War II. I mean, we were not endowed, but you know what? He gave us the work ethic, and I think your kids probably got that. You were a grinder. That's what my 28-year-old would say, that you were a grinder.
Right, absolutely.
Right? And so that, you're lucky. You got that sort of motivation to do it.
Well, you triggered, I joined a company called Bull Electronics that hadn't made money, and they were at $20 million. But at the point I joined them in like 2000, literally 2000, the whole internet boom was taking off, and the need for the hardware to fit that. Those were those commercials you saw on Super Bowl that said, money's coming out the wazoo, line, right? Yeah. But that was the time period we got in, and we were a small $20 million company. In 5 years, we grew it to $80 million. And so I was heading up that group as the vice president of sales and marketing. But the timing was perfect to 4X the company. Ultimately, it got sold and to a larger company, and I moved on to another opportunity. But you're 100% right.
Yeah.
You know, you put yourself in situations to win, and then, you know, the market could have turned south at the same time that I did that.
Very, very famous expression, which you'll hear me quote many times from his book. I would rather be lucky than smart.
Right. Absolutely.
Now tell me, let's go, if you don't mind, because I think one of the reasons that asked you to come along, we were on our annual cruise on Boston Harbor, which is a great event that we started years ago. It's just a great social get together with, you know, people we've met over the last 50 years that just are superstars in planning and everything. And you have a great story about your daughter and about a foundation, I think, that deserves a little bit of exposure. So tell us about Ashlyn and what she's doing.
Yeah. So again, I mentioned a little bit earlier, Ashlyn's a dental assistant at the VA. She met a guy going back almost 3 years now, who was in the sheet metal union in Boston. They started seeing each other, and he wasn't feeling well almost immediately when they started dating, and went to test. And unfortunately, he had a stomach cancer, and it in fact is terminal. They fell in love, and they stayed together, and ultimately decided to get married. They didn't have any resources to pay for a wedding, and they found an organization called Wish Upon a Wedding, and in some ways it's similar to Make-A-Wish that people may have seen, but what it does is it grants a wedding to terminally ill people, or simply to repeat the wedding vows. And so they applied. They needed all the doctor's records. Wish Upon a Wedding called his oncologist, and he validated where he was at. And over a period of time, they in fact selected them as a couple. And they have people that will give their time and volunteer to put together a wedding. And so they found a wedding planner. This is Wish Upon a Wedding, a venue, and all the accoutrements that go with it, from the food to the band. They had they had people that were playing during the wedding ceremony itself. They had a woman that was painting a small mural painting for them while the wedding was going on, and it was just top shelf, even down to the plate seating. It was exactly how they wanted it. There was 50 guests. It was a sober event because they didn't want to as an organization, they didn't want people imbibing and getting into trouble. Each chair that you sat in, there was a pillow with your own stencil name on it.
Wow.
I mean, it was just very high class. They provided a limo for them to leave, and it was just a great night. And it was a night of giving, and the emotional level was certainly at a peak because people understood that, you know, this might be the last hurrah for Christopher Roberts, you know. And I'm glad to say that Christopher's still with us, and he's struggling, but I'm glad he's here.
It's a super story. So let's just give him a shout out, and I want to just make it really specific. So Wish Upon a Wedding is a public foundation or something, and if you have any sort of questions about how to reach them or whatever, if you hear this podcast and you can't find them, you reach out to us. I'll put you in touch with Bob. Bob, I'm sure, being the spreadsheet guy he is, will have every bit of their contact info and all stuff. And it sounds like an organization that's not a phony baloney. It sounds like they really do the thing that they say they're going to do, and I appreciate all the volunteers that do that stuff. So when we run across an organization like this, we like to give them all the press that we can get. Right?
So my understanding is they do 50 weddings a year in all 50 states.
all 50 states, great.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's a national organization.
Good.
And it was just so high class and high end. It was fantastic.
So let's flip back to you and Susan. So I think some of the things that we talked about over the years, which are kind of interesting, I will say that I hope Susan, like a lot of other educators, really appreciates the bill that was signed at the end of the Biden term, the Social Security Fairness Act. By the way, folks, we've talked about that. My sister-in-law, who was an educator, who's retired, just got her like reimbursement check for being beat up for years and not being fully paid. The Social Security Fairness Act, I'm sure President Biden will never get credit for this, but we lobbied for that, and the Senior Safe Security Act. Those are two reasons that I had done some lobbying in Washington for seniors. They're both signed, they're both enacted. No one will ever, give the administration any credit, but as an educator, Susan, if she had, paid into FICA, wasn't able to collect her money, but now under the Social Security Fairness Act, educators can not only collect their money, but if something terrible happens to Bob and he's got Social Security, Susan, as a former educator or a member of the education system, is entitled to get his full Social Security without any reduction. That's brand new as of this year. It's an awesome thing for retirees, and it does correct a really horrible bill that was passed under the Reagan administration to try to save money for social. Now, I'm going to be doing a podcast with somebody about the shakiness of Social Security, and this kind of leads to that, but that's a whole different topic, which we won't get into today. But let's talk about you. One of the things about planning your retirement, which I think was really fundamental, is that you weren't exactly a big risk taker. And I think that, can you just talk a little bit about the stress reduction of having, your income is virtually guaranteed to you, like every week, every month. And I know for you, especially, that was the right prescription, right? And tell me how that makes you and Susan feel when you're going back and forth to Florida and spending money and stuff.
Yeah. The plan, and I've been working for 9 years now, it is virtually perfect, because we get to do enough traveling even when within the state of Florida when we're in Mass, and so the combination of having the annuities, Social Security, and Susan has a pension out of the Braintree town of Braintree system, and we have enjoyed the new dropping of the old WEP requirements.
Finally.
So that was a great bump for us that we kind of needed it. Where we're all getting hit with inflation now. But the combination, I was able to enjoy a baseline at 62, and there's some compound year over year, cost of living increases that have just met our needs, and so that we're able to do what we want, and not have to do much budgeting at this point.
What's interesting is that
works.
We often think of you, and by the way, you should probably know your ears are burning sometimes, but when we're doing like financial education for young advisors, and you talk about making the right prescription for the sickness that the client has or the goals they have or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is very much like a doctor's office. If we all walked into the doctor's office and we got the same pill, half of us would die,
Right.
So guaranteed lifetime income for a non-risk taker, and you kind of fall into that category. You've been conservative, a planner, plotter, plugger, whatever, grinder, as my son Nick would say. The guaranteed lifetime income story is a big sleeping pill. Right? Some folks just can't take the risk. I would say that we do have a lot of those folks who took a lot of chances. I know someone who went through 3 startups and had millions of stock options that all became worthless, right? And there's some folks who can live through that.
Right.
But there's a lot of other folks who can't. I'm married to a very conservative Canadian military wife. Let me tell you, if I lost a certain amount of money, I would be on the couch. There's no question about it.
Sure.
And, Linda's family, if you know anything about Canadian or military families, very, very security oriented,
Sure.
And so I get it. I get the place for those things. There's always a round peg, square hole problem. But I get the place for those things for the right people, you know? So in your case, now that you're 71, you're active grandparenting, and what's the plan going forward? You're just going to keep, you like the snowbird thing so much that there's never going to be a different life plan for you guys. It's always...
That's correct, yeah. We do so many activities. We really like and enjoy music. So when you go to Florida, for us older people, the band comes on at 6 or 7. It's perfect. We're out of there at 10. And the same thing's up here in Boston. There's just so many things for us to do. And we're beach people. So whether we're at the beach or we're out kayaking, for me, I'm fishing, go to the pool late afternoon, we're living a really good lifestyle. We just are.
I love it.
And so, no, there's no point in changing it. And we're blessed. Like just this past weekend, we were down in the Cape with friends that we've known for like 45, 50 years. We were all marveling how long we've known each other, but spend a nice weekend in Yarmouthport and just nice dinner and drinks. And we do it every year. You know, that's really the connection. It's family and friends. It's not. Could I go to Italy and get in the crowds on a hot August day? Yep. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's interesting. So Linda and I spent a lot of time. Again, my wife, who's my wife, partner, mom, etc., also happened to be my research assistant on this longevity book that I wrote, the Stanford study, which is really a big fat, thing. I've condensed it down to 103 pages or something. Has a lot to do with these things called the blue zones. When you talk about Italy or Nova Scotia, Canada, or Okinawa, these places where people live a long, long time.
Right.
It has so little to do with money. It has almost nothing to do with money.
Right.
Actually, the people who live the longest, and again, this is what I hope for you and Susan, that live the longest, happiest, most rewarding lives. It's stress reduction, social. Not like sitting in a room by yourself somewhere watching daytime TV, right?
Right.
It's social. It's family for sure. There's a great expression in that study about they surveyed a ton of people who actually made 100, like both of Linda's grandmoms, her grandmother and her great-grandmother all went to like 104, 106, It was all about having a reason to get up in the morning. And I'm sure you meet them because you're in that retiree world, and you meet with some people, and then you and Susan are home later and you say, wow, that person's really like grouchy, they got nothing going on, or there's no, you feel like sorry for them in a way, right? But you've got it all. You've got it all.
You also have the opposite, and that is particularly, we're not in a retirement community in Florida. It's about 50% working people and 50% retirees. But the retirees are sort of have that same mindset. They may have come from the Northeast or the Midwest, number of people from the Midwest. And they've, for some of them, they sold their homes and moved down there. For others, they're doing the split. But you can see that they're socially active. They're trying to, as we all are, trying to be physically fit with our walking routines and whatever it is. So you meet that like-minded group of people that want to go out for group lunches or want to go out for group bike rides or whatever, or we have social events at the club, but you don't find people that sort of make the next step into good retirement vegetating in front of their flat screen TV. It's not a working formula.
Yeah, it has a lot. In fact, it's really funny because I saw something recently about the NFL season, and the NFL and the beer people, they're really a league together to shorten lives. There's a lot of, but I probably shouldn't say it. There's a lot of beer going down in front of TVs over the next few months. It's not necessarily a great lifestyle, but for those people that love it, a little bit for a few months a year, I guess is okay.
Yeah.
I want to wrap up just by saying I think that the reason that we're doing these podcasts is to give other people that are sort of on the cusp a little insight. So you've been exposed to a lot of financial things. You've been in business flying around the world. I mean, what would you say to your 50-year-old self, right? What if anything would you say as someone who's lived it, not theoretical advice? I'm talking like really practical advice. What would you say to yourself at 50 to get ready for this next phase?
Yeah, I'm going to say a little bit of stay the course in this sense. At 50, if you haven't set goals, you better do it now, and your window is really incredibly short. The other observation I had was, it's terrible. I want to say this correctly. A lot of people start to get laid off at that 55, 58. They're at highest salaries, and in this competitive market, it's like you see people get laid off, and then they're, they can't bring back their incomes that they may have had. So that's like a built-in trap where now you're facing college or weddings and your retirement, and now you can't get to the end. So if you don't start early enough, and difficulty is going to happen, and it might be a medical thing, there are so many pitfalls to falling, out of reaching your goals that it may be totally out of your control, right? Merger and acquisition, they don't need you anymore. You got to be Bob and Susan Inc. yourself. Start managing yourself as a team, because if you don't, you're just not going to get to the end.
Yeah, what's interesting about what you just said, and I'm going to wrap up with this thought, because in all three of my books, whether it's Smart Financial Grandparenting, Longevity, or The Wealth Building, I do advocate a team approach, and I think that it's great. Even if you think you're perfect, you're doing a great job. Getting a second opinion, talking to somebody. I know it's harsh sometimes to have some professionals, lawyers and financial advisors, and say, hey, you screwed up on this, or you got to fix that. Because it's very difficult for people to admit a mistake. It's the hardest thing in the world, which you see a lot of in today's world, right? People have a hard time doing that. The second thing is, I do think that what you're doing and what other families are doing to get the kids started early is a really big thing. There's a thing going on right now in America, which is really kind of rolls into our next podcast we're going to be doing about Social Security, which is called lack of family formation. Young kids are not getting married early, having babies, buying houses. And the reason that they're deferring it is a lot of it is money, student loans, cost of buying houses, which really pushes this whole thing out many, many years. So I think you and Susan were very brave, right? As a couple of kids from South D in Cambridge, right? I lived in Cambridge quite a bit when I was going to college in the 70s. It's not the same today, for sure.
Not gentrified,
I couldn't afford it, right? But I think helping your kids launch the way you did, get married, have babies, buy a house, and get the plan going. I think that took more than just a spreadsheet. It took a little spine. And good for you. And I want to just wrap up by saying to everybody that this clip will be on Spotify probably in October, right? For those of you that are regular listeners to the channel, make sure you subscribe, like. If you want to make comments about Bob's little talk about getting ready for retirement and how much he loves, I didn't say Excel, but he says spreadsheets, right? Go ahead and comment on the links below. And I'll see you again next time on Smart Financial Real Life Stories.